This podcast is sponsored by YSC Real Estate Group, offering a tailor-made service, versatility and expertise for all your real estate needs. Are you thinking about selling, buying, investing or having your properties managed? For more information, check our website, www.yscrealestategroup.com. We are passionate about real estate and we love to support local businesses. We hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Cheers.
Oh, man. Jeez. What
Another
a week,
episode.
Another episode. What? I don't even, to be honest, I don't know what episode we're on.
I think we're on episode 25.
25?
Yeah.
Cool. Episode 25, guys. Welcome. We just had Chinese New Year's.
Yeah.
Right? And minus 40 degrees last week here. So, yeah, it's glad to be back on the podcast. Welcome to Behind the Business, guys. Today we have Caleb Chung with AeroCorp Avionic Solutions.
Hello. How are you guys?
How's it going, Caleb?
How's it going, Caleb? 19 employees, running for 11 years. Total corporation running for since 1999.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So about 22 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty successful business to be running for over 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty lucrative. It wasn't always, the best at times.
For
but,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't go from, that 19 employees in 20 years for over nothing. There's always going to be some struggles and successes coming from it as well.
I feel like 20 years, though, you've finally get comfortable with your business, right?
Yeah, I would say probably about 5 years ago until we finally got really comfortable and, got all the employees ready, got all our systems down, all the parts, everything. Yeah, it took about, for me, comfortably 5 years to get, a good running head start before anything else.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's usually, I think, for us, we're 4 years in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're finally tweaking the systems and
Getting people
getting
on.
it, yeah.
And then just understanding the back end stuff where it's like, it's kind of running on its own now.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So let's start off, Caleb. Tell us something about yourself that no one really knows.
Well,
I like to throw that question in.
So a lot of people don't know that I actually, other than the people that are beside my office, I actually listen to country music, like 90s country music quite regularly, where people walk by my office and they're like, what are you listening to? So it kind of throws people off being, a Chinese-born Canadian,
You don't like that EDM music?
That's another story. I do absolutely love dance music. I've been listening to dance music since, 1992, 93. Everyone had that CD of Dance Mix 94, 95. So I still, in the bulk, do listen to dance music. But, I do go through my country,
That's funny.
Garth Brooks.
something relaxing about it.
Oh, yeah. I just turn to it once in a while when I start getting, really stressed out. I'll turn on country music.
That's pretty funny.
Did you just start listening to it when you're young, or?
I think it was because I was born in Calgary. I don't know. It's just been kind of one of those things. That
I was born in Calgary. I cannot stand country music.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like the only genre I don't listen to.
Oh.
I feel like.
Yeah. I don't listen to any new country. It's older. It has to be older
country.
country. I don't listen to new country.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's fine, man. I like, Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus. I like my secret.
Oh, yeah.
Funny.
But I was like, why do you listen to this? I'm like, I like this type of music. But hey, everyone, I think music in general, though, is there's so much different types of music. I like old school punk, like Linkin Park,
Oh, yeah.
Limp Bizkit stuff too, right?
yeah.
So
Diversity.
yeah, it's hard to have a specific genre, but that's interesting. 80s and 90s music. I think me and Dave went to a country music festival.
Yeah, Country Thunder.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
We were the only Asians.
Yeah, so we were there with the Concord group. They had us a booth.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the only Asian booth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
We were the only Asian people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my life because most of my friends weren't Asian back growing up. especially between like 17 to 22. So I didn't get my choice of bars that I ever went to,
Yeah.
so I always went to country bars,
Yeah.
and you could always find the one other Asian
Yeah.
in the
You're like,
whole club. Oh, there you are.
There's two of us. That's hilarious.
That is hilarious. But you know what? Growing up in Calgary, you do like when we went to Stampede and stuff. We it was all country music.
Wow.
I just couldn't jive with it. But some I like, you know, Shania Twain.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I could not like get into it. But you know, that's fair. Born in Calgary, right? So, yeah, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about you getting into AeroCorp, how it started. What were you doing before that?
Yeah. What was your background?
Yeah.
So I graduated from high school, and then I ended up going to Mount Royal, kind of discover what I wanted to do, and then I took my first year of engineering there, and then I guess I kind of realized between I guess the second semester this wasn't for me. Like I couldn't be behind a desk. I mean, I was studying from like 8 in the morning to like 10 at night, and I was always at school. I'm like, do I really want to be doing calculations all my life? And like, I just wasn't for me. I was really good with my hands. So my father actually, he was a bench technician when he immigrated to Canada, avionics. So people that don't know what avionics is, it's like flight electrical systems for aircraft. So then he's like, why don't you go to SAIT, take the 2-year program because you're still young, and if you don't like it, you still have the option to change to whatever trade that you want to. It's only a 2-year program for most trades. So then I'm like, okay. So then I end up taking a 2-year course at SAIT, and then I just so happened to be graduating in pretty much the worst year you could graduate because 9/11 just happened.
Shit.
So all planes are grounded between my first and second year. Nobody wanted to fly. You know, out of my graduating class of like 30, I think maybe like 6 of us got jobs right after. So it's pretty bleak. And even, you know, between my first job and I graduated, it was like 4 months. So, I slinged burgers at McDonald's, you know, to pay for my education. And then I just carried forward because I needed a job. So I just kept on working. Then I finally found my first job at Ken Bork Air in the avionics department there. And then I worked through my apprenticeship there for 2 years, kind of bit my tongue there because it was a really rough environment, like aviation in general. You know, men are men. You know, they're rough. And then my manager wasn't exactly the most supporting guy, you know, and he was always angry. He used to come in, you know, smelling like liquor sometimes. And then he just wasn't a conducive environment. And then
How old were you at this time?
I was probably 22 at the time.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, that's pretty young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
22 at the
Yeah.
time.
And you're 40 now.
I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
So at 22 at the time, and then, you know, worked my apprenticeship, and then, you know, an opportunity that I used to work for the guy before asked me to come to North Caribou Air. So then he's like, do you want to run the department there? And, you know, I'm like, look, I'm just like an apprentice. I'm just getting my license. You know, I mean, you're putting a lot of trust in me to run a department. So then, you know, me and my, current business partner end up going there together. And then he ended up quitting within 4 months of that place. And then the whole department was on me. So then, you know, there was about 18 aircraft I used to take care of there quite regularly. And it was quite hectic, and I worked evenings. So I worked from like 3 to 11. I worked there for about 5 years doing my installs, line maintenance, troubleshooting. And then, you know, within a certain amount of time, you know, everything starts for some reason over beers. You go over, you know, with my current business partner, Josh. We always talked about, hey, you know, let's start our own business. You know, what are we going to do? You know, are we going to keep on working like this until, you know, it was a good career and I enjoyed avionics, but I could see myself couldn't get any further. So, you know, he at the time was like, okay, I have a house in Grand Prairie that he was renting. He could remortgage the house, and I was ready to take out a loan. And then, you know, things kind of progressed.
So you guys went out for a couple drinks to talk about starting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know,
And what was he doing at that time?
he was working for, not JetBlue. he was working for WestJet, but he was maintaining the TV systems on WestJet aircraft. I forgot what the company name was, but that's what he was doing at nights. And sometimes he would help me if I would contract him, during the evening hours sometimes to help me out because 18 aircraft for one guy was quite a bit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
For quite a bit, and we had a large fleet of different type of aircraft. So it was a little bit too much for me, but we always go out, by the time you're off at like 10:30, 11, you're like, well, it's Wings Wednesdays, let's go out for beers.
Yeah.
And then we always talked. So that kind of is where it kind of all started. And then, my father at the time owned a very small bench shop, AeroCorp. And then he was always, saying that he wants to quit. This sucks. He had 3 business partners at the time. The owner of Eagle Copters was one, but he was just a silent partner. He was, he had all the money. He just invested in the company. And then he had another business partner, which, obviously didn't work very well because, he ended up stealing a lot of money from within the company, like just, shady business, bring stuff behind the doors. And then my father was ready to close. My father's like 68 now. So at the time he was probably like 55, and he's like, you know what, this is not worth it. I could just work out the rest 10 of my years and I'll be done. I don't need to go through this headache. And at the time the books, I didn't know, but the books were so read at the time where, he was on like praying for paychecks to come in to pay payroll. That's how tight it is. And I know a lot of companies nowadays operate in the negative, but they were like on the brink of bankruptcy. So,
Why didn't you work with your dad right from school?
That's a big question because, we're 2 different types of technicians. I'm more based on the aircraft side. He's more like take the instruments apart. It's very meticulous work and open it up and then fix whatever's inside down to the IC level. So this was not the training that I had done at SAIT. He had done that in Hong Kong. So we were under the umbrella of avionics, but we weren't, the same technician. So, people ask me that, and then back in the day, who wants to work with their father? Yeah. I mean, there's a definitely different attitude between working with your father and, there was times, I remember a very specific question I asked him when I lived at home at the time. I was a rookie apprentice. I was like, Dad, how does a synchro work? He's like, what are you, stupid? I'm like, it's like, what did they teach you in school? And being,
what is a synchro?
Yeah, so it ended up being like, oh my gosh, like, you've got so many years ahead of me, and I'm asking you a question as an apprentice, and it ended up, being one of those, I'm going to prove you wrong, one of those questions. So I didn't want to ever, go into business with my father originally.
Did he influence you to be like into airplane technician, or or was that just coincident? You just had a passion for it, or did he kind of influence you into that?
Yeah, he kind of influenced me into that because it was like, he knew I was okay with my hands, and then, he was in the industry. So of course, he kind of shooed me that way, into avionics. And then because, engineering is quite mathematical and avionics is a little bit more mathematical as opposed to like sheet metal or maintenance, So he, it was a little bit more my stronger suit. So yeah, I never, looking back, would have ever thought of going into business with my father. But at the time, like I was saying, like his business was failing, and we were ready to start up. So then I approached my father saying, "Hey, Dad, me and Josh are ready to start something, and I'm not sure if you want to or not." To be business partners with us and give it a go. And his first, reaction was like, no, my old business partners tried this before. We've lost money. There's no way you guys are going to make it.
Did you have a business plan when you brought this
up?
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Like we're gonna do installs. We're gonna do line maintenance for third-party line maintenance for different types of people. And being in the industry for now at least 8-9 years, we start getting to know everyone around us, and people move around, they become in charge. So they're like, people knew like me and Josh quite well. And then 6 months have gone by. I'm like, Dad, look, what have you got to lose at giving me and Josh a chance, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, he finally caved in with the owner of Eagle, which now, you know, he's not with us anymore. He's with, we bought him out eventually.
Oh, you guys bought him out.
Yeah,
Nice.
eventually.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? So, you know, we rewrote all the manuals, you know, came in, introduced a system that they weren't, I mean, it's old school back then. So like, you know, computers they didn't use computers very well back then. And like, it was a big headache. So yeah. And then I end up, you know, seeing the books. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what did I get myself into? Like I'm coming to a company negative, almost negative, and like.
So you got into the business first and then saw the books after?
Yeah.
I've had a few of those too, actually.
Yeah. And then I'm like, and then it took, you know, my business partner went in first before I did, and I still needed, there wasn't enough money to be made just yet, and we didn't secure our first install until probably like 6 months later. So I was still part-time. I was still had my full-time job at North Caribou Air before I even came on board. But, you know, I would work the evenings, but during the day I'd be cleaning up the books. I'd be doing all the paperwork, writing all the, me and him were writing the manuals, you know, human resources manuals. He was writing our maintenance policy manual. And then finally, you know, one of our customers decided to go with us because we obviously give them a pretty good price on an install. And then that was our first install. Then I, you know, quit my job at North Caribou Air and then did our first install.
Who was the first client?
It was
it?
Morgan Air Services, and it was actually, now they've turned to Air Partners. So they was our first client that we installed TCAS2 with transponders, which is traffic collision avoidance systems. We installed that in our first citation now 10, 11 years ago.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's like some serious stuff, though.
Yeah, and, you know, with, you know, coming into a company with not being negative, everything, you know, like, I need a spool of wire. Everything was like, you know, we need to buy it? And luckily, you know, at the time, Eagle Copters, you know, he was silent partner, but he was like letting us use his laser wire marker. He was, you know, supporting us that way, lending us some test equipment when we didn't have, you know, the funds. Because aviation, you know, test equipment is relatively, like, it's really expensive. Some of these test equipment were like, you know, $20,000-$30,000 US a piece, and sometimes you need 2 or 3 of them to run a system. So, you know, you can't just, you know, when your books are negative, you can't just drop, you know, a large amount of money, you know, trying to recuperate that cost of test equipment right away.
Yeah, that's crazy. Huge startup cost.
Oh, it's huge. Like some of these. And then you got to recalibrate all this equipment every year, and sometimes they'll find something wrong, so it could be thousands of dollars to recertify some of this equipment.
That's crazy, man. How did you guys just use your own capital to buy all the like tech equipment and stuff to get it going, or how did you change the books from negative to positive? And how long did that take you?
It might have, we started, like, AeroCorp's never had like debt, like gone into and taken a loan to pay the bills. So we've been very fortunate, even from the beginning, where we're just scraping by, like with the edge of our teeth some days. And then, you know, once we did one install, we would use that, you know, money to kind of direct it into like, okay, let's put some away for a test equipment, and then boom, we would buy one thing at a time. We would start, you know, buy
accumulating assets.
Oh yeah.
Stuff,
So that's how we kind of made our way through, and then, you know, eventually, you know, 3, 4, I think it was 5, 6 years ago, we end up buying Mike out. Mike was the Eagle Copters owner, because he basically said, you guys are getting too big. Is it at your best interest? He's the most generous person I've ever met. Like, he's instructing us to, like, you need to buy me out ASAP before you get too big where it's not going to be worth it. Basically, because we're accruing more and more assets. He's like, you know, he's very wealthy individual, and I'm not sure if he needs any more money, but he's like, to take care of yourselves. I haven't done anything within the company other than pour the initial equity, buy me out, and we're good. And he gave us a good price, and that was we're still really good friends. And I take, you know, a lot of opinions from him.
That's awesome.
And that was 6 years after.
Yeah, 6-7 years after.
That's very nice of him to allow him to buy.
Oh yeah, because if we got to the point where we are now,
Yeah.
and then you base the numbers, you know, by a multiplier of 3.5, normally it's usually 3.5 based on your current earnings is usually what, you know, the number the buyout is, and he didn't give it wasn't like that. So he gave us a relatively good number, and we're like, okay,
We'll take it.
yeah, we'll take it.
That's awesome.
So I just want to be clear with exactly what you guys do. You guys, like, what's your typical customer? They're hiring you to install, like,
Electronics.
electronics
Oh, yeah.
into their
Instrumentation.
plane?
Yeah,
And maintain them, right?
So yeah, so in my division, I'm the line maintenance and install manager. So I deal with installs on aircraft, like with avionics, anything electrical related. We also do like annual checks. Aircraft need to be routinely serviced. So
are you talking about like the all the switches at the front?
all the indicators?
Okay.
All the indicators.
That's really important stuff. Right?
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. It's serious work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is serious work.
Yeah, so it's flight, electrical, communications, autopilot, navigation systems, like traffic collision avoidance systems, ground prox warning systems, which is like prevent you from like hitting the ground.
Yeah. That's what Kobe Bryant's helicopter was missing, right? I heard, or it was like it failed.
It didn't have it, and
It didn't have what?
It didn't have the ground like sensor collision. That's
Yeah.
why they ran into the mountain, because
Yeah.
it was so cloudy during that time in LA. Like most of the helicopters were grounded,
Yeah.
and then what happened was his pilot still went and flew, and they didn't like, or that system wasn't working, or it didn't have it, and that's why
Crazy.
they crashed into the mountain.
yeah. So from what I'm hearing, it didn't have it at all. And
Yeah.
then when you go through heavy,
Our helicopters supposed to have it.
not all. It's
No.
not a complete requirement.
Oh, okay.
So he.
But those are the things that you install.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
okay.
correct. So the whole story of Kobe Bryant was once you fly in like heavy cloud,
Yeah.
you don't have a reference of the horizon.
Yeah.
So then you get complete vertigo, and then you have to rely on the instrument. And I don't think he went high enough, and then he went into the mountain.
It's supposed to tell you like relative where you are. Imagine just looking to a white space and you
Yeah.
don't know where up or down or left. Or
I would
right
just keep
is.
going up, man.
Yeah.
But you don't know where
You
up
don't know
is.
where up is.
Oh, I
You
guess.
have no point of reference.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you have no point of reference, up could be down and
Yeah,
down
yeah,
could be
yeah.
up, but you would feel the gravity, I guess.
Yeah, like if you were angled down.
But it's hard to tell, and also like the LA is just full of valleys, right?
Yeah.
So if like there could be a hill there, and you wouldn't know if it was in front of you or if it was above. Like you wouldn't know if you were like level, right? So
Yeah.
that was kind of the issue that they had, and that's why they crashed. I
Yeah.
heard.
Didn't know that much about that, but that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we travel all over the world. We have international customers now, so we'll like go wherever it needs to get installed. And on the bench side,
What are like the price points of
Oh.
these? Just
We,
curious.
like-
Yeah.
we deal with everything in Calgary from like the highest price point. Like I've worked on Falcon 7Xs,
What's that?
which is
private
like
jet?
probably like private. A lot of corporate aircraft we work on. So we go from anywhere from like $30-40 million aircraft,
Holy.
complete private aircrafts to like.
So you fly down to these places, or they bring them here, or
A lot of them are here. Like
they are here,
Yeah,
okay.
a lot of like, for example, TransCanada Pipelines, Enbridge, Shaw has their own personal aircraft.
Suncor?
Suncor has
Yeah.
Suncor has a Challenger that we take care of actually. So
any celebrities? Or you can't just
I haven't seen any.
or really
celebrities.
wealthy people, I
Yeah.
guess.
North Caribou Air used to have an aircraft there that had the Calgary Flames aircraft. So I would see, Ken King quite regularly, Brett Sutter at the time that was the head coach, come through our lobby quite regularly.
Crazy.
So yeah, and then we obviously work on small not as nice airplanes. So we have quite
A range.
And then, our cream of the crop aircraft is we work on Twin Otters, which is like the ones you see in Maldives where they're on floats that like take you to the private resorts. So we do a lot of Twin Otters, and Calgary is like Twin Otter capital. We have so many Twin Otters that are being maintained in Calgary, so that's kind of like our bread and butter.
Any G5 or G6s?
There are two aircraft, or actually three G5, G6s in Calgary. Two are, I think one's at SunWest, and then two, but they have their own private maintenance guys that kind of take care of it. And yeah, I've been in them, but I don't take care of them.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
I heard they're pretty crazy.
Yeah, the one in Sky Service, I do believe it's the people that invented the smartboard.
Oh, wow.
So
At the university, like the University Smart company. Like
yeah, where you see it, it's in every classroom nowadays.
A smartboard, what is that?
It's like a smartboard. When you write on it, it actually goes onto like a screen, and then I think they can like project stuff onto it as well too. It's like a standard for instructing now. They use a lot of corporate spaces. Crazy.
So yeah, there's his and hers at Sky Service, the
Oh, really?
wives and the husbands.
Jets?
Oh yeah.
Damn. Yeah, a G6 is what Grant Cardone has.
Yeah.
His 10X plane.
Oh, the one that he's sitting on?
Yeah. It's like a luxury.
How much are those planes worth?
Oh, they can range depending on the options. They go up to like 50, 60 million
Holy.
easy.
It's like a Rolls Royce in the sky.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, so you're building this business. You started and it was about 11 years ago, right?
Yeah.
6 years after you buy out your partner. At what point did you realize you guys were growing significantly, and like started hiring the staff? When did you start
Scaling up.
Yeah.
I would say probably 6 years ago. I mean, when we started outgrowing the original facility, and then we rented a warehouse, but it ended up being really far because we had a couple projects in Russia. We were doing Mi-6 helicopter modifications and sending the kit over there. So we rented a warehouse, but ended up getting, it was too far away from the airport. So kind of at that point where we're like, okay, we're getting to the point where it's getting pretty big here, where we have to separate from the main shop. And then we operated out of another building for probably another 3-4 years, and then just recently, like last year, we combined the two shops in our own building. We didn't release the building, but we combined the two shops to now a facility. I think we're like 1,100 square feet now.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. That was just before we kind of met, because we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take a tour of the facility, but you're like, wait until we get into the new space because it's kind of a shit show right now.
That's correct. Yeah. We were like everywhere. I was moving stuff and it was just so unorganized at the time. And you guys are more than welcome to come now.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
To come now, I can take you on a tour, and some of our clients that we go to on their private aircraft that they operate.
That'd be sick.
Take some photos.
Yo, I'm holding you. Set this up. I'd like to see some private jets.
That's funny.
I said before for people that have asked, so it's not. I'll take you to the Eagle Copters since we're so really good buddies with them, and you can see everything from like beginning to end to overhauling and private aircraft. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, especially because it's like you hear a lot of the electronic stuff is for like cars. I hear more of but you don't really hear about like plane stuff.
Oh yeah,
I feel like it's very specialized.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wires on aircraft.
Yeah,
like
they're
once
huge.
you don't understand how much wire it is and how much interfacing there is until you pull the walls off, and then you see like how much wire we deal with. And then
I can imagine.
Is there like I'm guessing you guys definitely have like insurance and all that stuff to cover. Yeah.
Of course,
Liability.
like massive liability, and then that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is insurance is quite high for us because it only takes one incident, for something to happen, and then you kill, God forbid, kill a couple people, and then the lawsuit starts happening.
Yeah.
So that insurance is supposed to like I can't remember what the number ours was. Ours is between 60 and 100 million liability insurance because it just takes one incident for something to happen on a large aircraft, and then you're liable for it.
How do you check it though? Because I guess the only way to check it if it goes in the air, right? How do you actually run tests on
You'd probably run some like
simulation?
Samples, before.
We test everything on the ground before, but there is also flight test procedures that some of them you can't test until you're in the air. Like I've gone on flight tests before where, to test the ground prox warning system, you actually have to physically head towards a mountain. And,
What?
and then make sure all the systems are going off.
This is a simulation, or is this?
No, this is
real?
actually going to like the Rockies and
crazy.
and like
towards a mountain.
You head towards
Holy
the mountain
shit.
and then see the red images come up, and then the warnings go off in the headset, and then the pilots will peel off. I mean, in a safe manner, obviously.
Yeah.
And excessive descents, descents sometimes happen. So I've done quite a lot of flight testing in my time. So
They're all controlled tests.
of course, there's nothing that they would do that would endanger the crew. And at any point of the time, like the crew will like say, okay, this is getting too dangerous. They'll know to do to divert.
Crazy. When you were growing your business, the first 5-6 years, what were like the biggest lessons you learned?
Yeah, like
Or even like the last 2 years, I guess.
yeah, there's a lot of lessons I've learned in the first 3 years. To me, being a technician, not financially sound, was like the biggest thing for me, to look at numbers and to understand what the numbers meant. I'm not a finance person at all.
Yeah.
So when, the first quarter came out, I'm like, what does this all mean? I did, numbers and brackets. I was like, I had no idea. So that's one thing I struggled with, was looking at the numbers and understanding, how much tax, CBP, everything was just like how much we were paying employees. I was like, percent markup. I was like, I had no idea. So that was one thing.
I think that's one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs like need to understand if they're not good at, because I find even like in our real estate business, people go in and they don't understand that they're a business now, right? And like they get these big paychecks, and then it's like they don't know, and they
Where
look
to
at
go,
where it goes, right?
Put it.
But yeah, like the financing and getting it going, like how did you start figuring that out? And
So
Eva's an accountant, right?
Eva is my wife. Is
yeah.
accountant.
Well, there you go.
But
She sorted you out.
No, not really. Like there was a lady that was accounting, but like she at the time didn't really. She kind of carried an attitude at the time where two young guys coming into the company, and then we were changing.
Did you have an accountant though? Like
At the time, there was like
okay.
when we got into the company, there was a lady there that was doing part-time accounting and all the invoicing, and at the time, I didn't even know what the term accounts payable and receivable was. I was like, "What is all these numbers?"
Yeah.
I was like, "What is all this?" I'm like, but then and then at the time, she carried a really bad attitude, and then we end up hiring, getting Ringer for him. We end up hiring, a friend of ours, and then she kind of explained what was going on. We did, when we sit them at our year end, we used obviously an institute to go over our final numbers. But yeah, finances was the big thing for me, and then another thing I realized owning your own business is how much overtime you will do unpaid.
100%.
100%. Like I've worked so many days where I'm like at nights, struggling to get a project on going. Yeah, so the first 3 years was quite the struggle of working a large amount of time. And
just to get it going, I think people don't realize how much work and like adapting and changing to get it going and working, right?
Yeah.
And overtime is like I feel like there is no, that's just the way it is, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Like
and if people aren't willing to put in the work, like that, then you get
That's
that
how
result.
they fail.
Yeah.
yeah.
You get what you put in.
Yep.
And then, being an employee before, it was like, okay, I got work overtime, I got a paycheck, I could see it, and then, working overtime, you owning your own business, you're like, okay, it's for the greater good.
Yeah. You're like, this will pay itself off in 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. How do you guys get most of your guys' business then? Is it like referral, or like do you guys have outbound sales or stuff like that?
So there's a couple things like growing. When you start in the industry, you start working with everyone on the floor. Everyone works together and a company, and then people start getting promoted, and then they start branching off into being in charge of companies, basically. So everyone starts branching off. They find a better opportunity, and they know me and Josh's name. Working with us on the floor, and they knew our work habits. They knew what technicians we were. So that was one networking we kind of did that way. And then as soon as we started becoming bigger and bigger, people were finding out we were going international. It started becoming word of mouth. Oh wow, these guys deal with Twin Otters regularly. And then that was another way people found. And then we actually developed a glass cockpit, a package, Garmin glass cockpit could go into Twin Otter, which we, STC'd with supplement test certificate, which we are the only ones that you need permission from to install. So that was the big, golden egg for us that really kind of like shot us international. We're like, people started using us in the Maldives. People started using us in Switzerland. Like they kind of knew about our system, and then they started installing them. And then
say that again. You created
like a glass cockpit.
Yeah. So it's called the G. People don't know. It's called G950, which is the Garmin 950 system, which is like, these Twin Otters have been around since 1970s. So they're all analog instruments, all steam gauges. So what we did was we came up with a system, worked with Garmin, and then we put it into their system into the aircraft. Obviously it took software levels and and then we put it into to pretty much revitalize the aircraft to be modernized. And then
you upgraded it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's like
in easy terms.
It's like a digital retrofit, like from the original analog system.
Yeah,
but it's actually with
you gotta dumb it down for me because everything is. Well, I think people don't understand this language, man. Like a lot of people listening would be like, "What is that?"
Yeah. And it's with Garmin, like the satellite company.
Yeah,
like remember those old school satellite, like the GPS systems. Garmin. Yeah, that's the same company. Right?
Oh yeah,
so Garmin's partnered up with them.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's cool.
And then Garmin's like into watches. They're into aviation. They're into pretty much a lot of digital systems. So that was kind of like our golden egg.
So you and Josh created this that only you
helped work with Garmin too.
Yeah, helped work with Garmin. So the G1000 system or G950 system is in other platforms and other aircraft already. So we kind of like built a business case to say, it can go into this aircraft also. So we needed an initial launch customer, which obviously takes a lot. The plane's got to be grounded for like at least a year. There's a lot of engineering and designing that goes involved, and then a lot of testing, a lot of flight testing needed to be done. Because it's the first of stuff like calibrating the fuel systems. We had to build a linear curve, because fuel tank's not square. A fuel tank is, curved, so you got to fill it up, build a line and stuff like that. So it took a lot of.
You've lost me if I keep going.
But there's a lot of it involved just to develop.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're essentially just reinventing this whole system on the plane.
Oh yeah,
you're just maintaining like the mechanical part, but then all the electronics need to be updated.
That's right.
So you and Josh created this, and then this is kind of what launched you guys
internationally.
Internationally.
Oh, internationally.
So like, I think we're up to like, I think we've done like now counting. We're probably up to number 33.
So
we've done 33 aircraft already, and then we've got more being built right now in the shop, and we've got more orders coming quite regularly.
Crazy.
So you guys go out there and install them?
Oh yeah. Like I was just recently in Switzerland in August.
During COVID.
during COVID,
Wow.
because we're considered essential service.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anything in transportation, we're kind of bypassed everything. So we're allowed to travel.
That's cool.
And but this is before Switzerland got locked down. Obviously, their COVID cases went through the roof just after we kind of left in like October. So they shut down their country to like international travels at all. And Canada was on that list. But yeah, we've installed the system in the Maldives. We've installed it in Switzerland.
They just flew you down there just to just you or the team or
to me and one other individual.
Oh.
It takes about a team of two, probably roughly about 2.5 weeks to get done, and most of it's pre-built in Calgary because we have mock-ups in Calgary. So we have actually manufacture the harness in Calgary and then ship it out, and then we go there to install it.
With all the instruments.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's intense. You'd be good for like car, because you're a car guy too, right?
Yeah, I am.
You saw the ISF?
I still do have the ISF. It's covered right now.
Yeah. But yeah, like I feel like a lot of this stuff would be really cool to transfer over into the car industry because it's so much more advanced in the avionics compared to automotives, right?
And the standards are like in the aircraft has to be really high, like especially for me, like because I'm kind of like I've got a little bit of OCD when it comes to like getting things done right, especially on aircraft. Like, so like wires have to be 100% straight. You know, every termination has to be in the same length. And you can tell if you ever talk to any of my employees, they know like what irks me, like because of my OCD. It's just like, okay, well, would I pay? It's like would I pay?
I could tell right now, but you explaining it.
Yeah,
but it's true though, because it's when you like something like that, it needs to almost be perfect.
Yes,
because
you
there's a
need
lot
that
of
OCD.
liability.
You
Yeah.
need that OCD for that.
And like the quality of your work that you do in that is almost like your signature is ingrained in every.
That's
harness,
right. And then back to liability. You're like, if anything came back that I did something wrong and it did, not just, morally, I did something wrong, it's just like consciously, I'm like, how could I release something, that looks like that and present that to the customer? And if I was the customer, I'd be like, yeah, it works, but it's like a rat's nest of wire and like
it's all twisted.
Yeah. So,
That's like Dave's OCD. He cleaned up all my wires here.
I saw all the wires. I was like, okay,
them all
I
in a
gotta
knot.
tuck this. And then after I saw the nest under, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go and wrap all the wires underneath so that it's not everywhere.
Yeah, and and that's what I do when I do an inspection. I'll pick apart and harness, and some of my employees are like, oh my
That's good though. You're setting the standard though.
Yeah.
That's what you should be doing, right? Setting the standard for your company.
And
right?
then every employee that comes in on my side, we're like, where they used to work before is like, oh, we never used to care about stuff like this. I'm like, well, you're going to now because
Totally.
I want to up the standard and
It's a part of your culture.
yeah.
How do you actually I have a few questions, but how do you hire or pick your people that you hire, like for your company?
So
Like, is it a culture thing? Like,
it
if it fits a
referral?
referral, like how did you build this to 19 employees and have them?
Like kind of running the same
Yeah.
system. 'Cause
okay. So there's a couple way we hire employees. One obviously is word of mouth. It's a small industry, so we kind of hear the people that are already industry. I kind of hear already what's going on, what they're like, and I'm also part of the SATE committee. So I am actually in the Aviation Avionics board that recommends changes to the program, and then we also have an industry night that we go there, and then we actually meet the students at the school before they graduate, and then they can come to our booth and then do kind of like a hiring fair, basically, so that we can see each other, introduce each other, and I also meet the students again in a Q&A in their second year. So I'll come to the school, and then they can ask me in a panel whatever questions they want to. So I'm also involved in the SATE program as well,
awesome.
as kind of a give back to them
Yeah.
for me graduating. So yeah,
And how long you been doing that?
I think I've been doing that for 5 years now.
That's good.
Part of the SAFE program.
And you also have like the first bid on seeing who's going to be a good.
You're sitting there recruiting, like,
It's funny.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I went to say too, and like I actually missed those student. Like I missed the student night that went, and it actually screwed me over for the summer because I wasn't able to get a long-term like student internship.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck, I probably shouldn't have missed this meeting.
Yeah. And then even when during the Q&A part, in the second year, there's 30 students, and I can, when you pan and you start talking, and then you can tell the one guy that has zero interest, looking about, one guy sleeping, and you're like, well, I'll remember your face.
And you're not getting picked.
Yeah.
My company.
Yeah, exactly. And then you come to the booth, but I know you weren't paying attention when I'm talking to you. So, I kind of get a feel. And then, with the new students, when I bring them in, usually I'll ask them a lot of technical questions to see if they can answer to the best of knowledge. And I'll actually put them through a small practicum. Normally during, they're all a little bit nervous already. So I'll ask them to do a small practicum of like soldering a wire, terminating. I'll send them to the back with a guy, and I'll set them up with a little workstation. I'm like, okay, I want to see what your hand skills are like. Cause not everyone's good with their hands. You might be good in the books, but not everyone's good with the hands. So
That's funny.
How has it been working with a business partner?
So, I mean,
and your dad, I guess, now.
Yeah. So
family.
Yeah. So in the beginning, obviously, it took a little bit for my dad to actually trust me.
Is he still really involved in the business, or?
Yeah, he still is. He still works in the back.
Oh, he's still there.
He's still there. He's 68, and he's like one of those old school agents that will just keep on working forever. And I have stopped asking him when he's going to retire, but it took a lot of trust for me to change his old school ways and how to create a system, and then for him to trust me to run the company. I mean, every son wants their father's approval, and I think eventually I've gained it. So that was one portion that where my dad now 100%. When I say something, it's at the best intentions, and then with Josh, we have very similar personalities. Like, I can count on one hand where we actually disagreed. Like, we're pretty much on the same wavelength most of the time. And that I feel like with owning a business, finding that the right partner, it does really help. We're both not like super aggressive. We're both like kind of mildly passive people. So, in the business world, it comes a plus and minus. Like, when it comes time I need to be more aggressive, it will be. But, we're both pretty much the same. So it helped a lot, growing the business, having a really good partner.
Did you guys grow up together?
No, he grew up in Grand Prairie on the farm, and then
he must like country music then.
No? Yeah. I would say he likes country music, but yeah, he grew up in Grand Prairie. He went to Nate instead of State.
Oh, okay.
And then, we both have a very similar work ethic as well. I mean, that's also one thing about a business partner, that we both kind of work really hard at a goal.
Yeah, I think that's really important is because I've had a lot of businesses with partners, and finding that right business partner that kind of aligns with like the vision, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about Dave right now, but I'm just joking. But like,
We're like almost 4 years in.
4 years in. And I think right now, you mentioned this when you're talking about your dad, is systems. So right now, I feel like we're at a phase where we're trying to create systems. How important is that to your business?
It creates structure, right?
Yeah.
Like, once you start following the system, like parts come in, there's no backdoor method. It organizes you 100%, way more organized. So getting
how important is that though?
one of the most important running a business, because you can't have complete chaos, and once you have the system, everything falls into place. And I don't know how to put it, but
it's almost like a guide, right?
Yes.
It's because when you were talking before, when you guys came in, you guys rewrote all these manuals and standard procedures, things to do, so that like anybody could reference it and also know how to pick up from that, right? It's like a manual.
Yeah.
Right. Especially like, so it sounds like you have a lot of good standard procedures, manuals, systems in place. that like it kind of takes out of the guesswork of things. It creates these habits for people,
Right.
essentially.
That's exactly it.
And did you know that right away going in, or did you have to learn the hard way of like, okay, yeah, this is not working. We need a system, right?
Yeah.
Well, going from the other two companies, there's always a system in place because, you know, on aircraft you can't forget anything.
Oh yeah, there's probably like a checklist of everything.
Oh, there's 100% a checklist
Yeah.
on how things are function checked, make sure your tools are all at the aircraft. There, you know, there's always a system when the paperwork is unreal when it comes to aircraft. Like sometimes I have to write the same thing 3 or 4 times. So there's always like, you know, write in the task card, know what you did, reference the manual, write it in the logbook, and then release the aircraft. So there's a whole
Wow.
Process.
so there's a whole process in every single. So we kind of took all that and then pushed it into AeroCorp to make things streamlined.
Kind of what you guys learned in your own experiences from the other companies, you were able to implement those same systems into yours because
That's
they
correct.
worked,
Yeah, they worked.
right? So, and obviously when you guys got in, you saw that they didn't have the proper systems in there to actually get things going.
No, they were still writing on carbon copy. You know, getting back to, you know, obviously customer service is really important to both of us, right? In any industry, you know, stuff. You know, nobody wants their, you know, someone takes a part to get fixed. Nobody wants it sitting in the shop for 6 months and then, you know.
You forget about it.
You forget about it, and then the customer calls, "Hey, where's my unit?" And they get all mad, and then all the, you know, the saying is, you piss off a customer one time, they'll tell 10 people. That's that's the general rule. So
Totally.
you don't want to ever like burn that bridge. And
Yeah, customer service and then also client retention.
that's correct.
Because at the end, like what I learned when I was like starting off in the sales, it's the customer is always right.
Yeah,
So like, how do you turn a negative into a positive with this client? Because if they have a negative experience, the average person knows about 250 people, and they're going to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you have to be able to create, convert the negative situation to a positive thing.
What are some mistakes you wish you could have avoided?
Well, you know, there's a, you know, hiring and firing people has always been like kind of one of my things that I don't like to do. You know,
yeah.
It has been like it's been hard to like segregate that, you know, personal feeling. And we're a small company, right? Like we treat everyone at AeroCorp, I feel, like a family. And then, you know, sometimes, you know, a bad attitude, you know, they may be the greatest worker in the world, but the attitude becomes cancer.
Yeah.
So one thing that it's hard is to like letting somebody go, because even though they may be the greatest worker in the world, letting them go. And then, you know, I never like to fire. Nobody wants to let anybody go. But then, you know, for me on a personal level, I start knowing their family. I start knowing their situation. I know they have a mortgage, you know, stuff like that, you know, becomes personal to me, that I'm like, oh my God, if I, you know, can this person, you know, I have guilt. You know, how are they going to eat? You know, especially in the, you know, recession right now, I have massive guilt feeling that, you know, that's something I wish I, you know, was able to segregate on another level. Is one thing I wish I could not do. What was the original question?
Yeah.
The mistakes.
The mistake.
You wish you could have avoided.
Oh yeah, and then, you know, obviously, you know, dealing with international customers, you know, every business will go through a loss, some loss of any some sort. So like for me, one thing me and Josh have learned over the years is, over large projects, is to take a deposit for the initial equipment, which avionics equipment is a huge amount of money. And then, you know, start doing progress payments. You know, like, we've gone this far in this project, you need to pay it up to this point, you know.
Like installments and
Like a
getting
payment plan.
That's correct. Because I don't, we've been burned and have had lawsuits with individuals.
Oh, really?
And some places have declared bankruptcy, and some of them have owed us 6 figures.
Oh,
so you're at a loss, and then you got to write it off, and then
Crazy.
you go through that whole process of lawyers and and that was a big learning curve for me, and a hard learning curve, because you don't want to ever become negative at a deal loss. That's like for you guys, you make a deal on a house, and then you don't get paid for it, and then then you're like, okay, we got to go through the legal process, and that takes months, and then that's even if you can get the money sometimes, if the company doesn't go under by that point, that was one big learning curve for
so what happened was someone wasn't able to pay, they went bankrupt.
They're probably on the verge of bankruptcy.
So they kind of like, we bugged them, okay, it's time for payment, and they kind of put it off, and then they started ignoring our emails, and then I'm like, you know what, something's fishy going on.
It was an international client?
It was a Calgary company.
Oh, shit.
So it was a Calgary company. I won't say the name. But then, stuff became fishy. And then, we pushed a, lawyer letter first that, hey, if you don't respond by 30 days, this is going to happen. And then 30 days rolled by, and then still nothing. And then, we started filing lawsuits, and obviously lawyers aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And then it takes time. So by that point in time, they started almost folding, declaring bankruptcy, and this company owed millions of dollars, not just to us, millions of dollars to other companies. And, they started grounding their aircraft, and
damn.
Yeah, it became ugly, not just for us, for like everyone
in the industry.
Like these individuals owed money to hotel chains, owed money to landing fees. When you land in the airport, you have to pay landing fees.
I heard about that.
Yeah,
because one of our clients works for Swoop Air.
Yeah,
and I heard that like every airport has their own landing fee and cost.
That's correct.
And I think Calgary actually has a pretty high.
That's
cost.
correct.
So that's why a lot of
landing
flights,
fee
just to dock into the airport. So like,
how much is it? Do you guys know?
Not off the top of my head.
I'm curious.
But apparently Vancouver and Toronto have the best because there's like so many people there. But yeah, that's something I just learned recently from a client of ours.
Yeah, one of their aircraft actually landed in Edmonton International, and the Edmonton International seized that airplane.
Oh, from them?
From them.
Oh shit!
Crazy.
For the amount of money they owe.
Yeah,
it's like a lien almost.
Yeah,
right?
Basically, like you're not flying anymore. You can't take off here because you haven't paid your fees.
Yeah, with your landing fees in our airport. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I never even thought of that.
Man, there's a whole another world out there. I feel with aviation and airplanes and all that stuff.
It's way above our pay grade right now to understand. That'd be cool to own a plane, though.
Yeah.
No?
They're expensive, my friend. Yeah. Like maintaining, I mean, it's not like a car where you can, you can drive for like 6,000 kilometers and nothing breaks.
Yeah.
Because of aircraft, there's high vibration. There's so many factors that deal with aircraft that.
Maybe not.
And parts for aircraft are ridiculously expensive. Like there's some like screws like. You can get it at Home Depot for 5 cents. Yeah. It's like $1 on the aircraft because it has to be certified mil spec. So there's like everything's like at least triple the price that when it comes to aircraft.
That's probably the same thing as a boat. One of my friends told me that the two best times when you own a boat is when the first time you buy it and the day that you sell it. Yeah, because just like the amount of work and the amount of maintenance and all that stuff, like headache. Pulling, like dealing all that would be the exact same on an airplane, but probably worse.
I mean, people pay for the convenience.
Yeah.
There's like, all these ones that are the private jet. They could just, instead of going to the international, they just go to the private FBO, hop in their plane, and have their 2 pilots ready to go, and boom, they're gone, right?
They have a lot of that in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
Like you can get a private jet to fly from like San Fran to like LA, and it's like $100-$200 to fly. You just you just fill it up with like some friends that want to go, and it's like that's how much it is. It's actually relatively inexpensive in the United States, but I think it's really expensive here.
Yeah,
totally.
I want to know more about like just like how it's been when you first started with your dad and how it's been now, and how like because I like just like the relationship with it, because you kind of were worried about it getting into it early on, but now it's like you guys have been doing it for a while now, and like what is it like now working with your dad?
It's like before, in the beginning, I think I had to gain a level of trust and respect on my knowledge. He didn't know what I knew, and he didn't know what I was like, how I worked, because I worked for other companies, right? So he was going based off what almost nothing that I was as a technician. So, you know, changing the system was pretty hard for him to take, because I was like, okay, we need to get things in order. And, you know, changing an old school guy, it's pretty hard. And then, you know, the relationship with my father, he was very strict growing up, and he's very Asian like dad, like not too much emotion. And like, you know, I remember my father being really hard, like really, really hard knocked father. And then when I got into industry, everyone's like, oh, Tony's like the nicest guy. I'm like, what is everyone talking about? My dad was a hard guy. He yelled all the time. He was very, very strict. And then now the relationship with my father, you know, we've gotten close. Obviously, he takes my opinions very seriously. You know, I'll say something and, you know, he pretty much agrees with me on how I run things. And when it comes to, you know, employees, when it comes to running the business. And, you know, it's nice seeing my father every day. You know, not everyone gets to work with their father and have that, you know, level of respect that he's pretty much giving me. So it's nice that me and my father have connected in that fashion. Yeah. So, I mean,
Sounds
I think I went from son to like, you know, actually like business partner.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like, because yeah, it's true, you don't really get to spend your time with your parents because you're in such a different line of work. And it's like you feel like you appreciate that time because a lot of people don't actually get to spend a lot of time like that with their parents and family. And like I was just asking that because like I used to work with my dad all the time too, and we used to butt heads like crazy.
Oh yeah.
And like, you know, you start figuring things out, doing things better, and then he's like, "Don't do it like that." You know, like, it's almost like a pride ego thing. But then like you start getting better at it, and things get done faster, and then they start understanding the process a lot better and appreciating what you actually bring to the table.
So you felt my pain.
Yeah, exactly. Like I used to fight with my dad all the time when we worked, and like it was just because he'd be like, "Hey, go grab this tool." I'd be out there looking for the tool for like 30 minutes because his truck is like a mess. Don't know where anything is. I'd come back in and he'd be like, "Hey, go grab this other tool." And I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me when I went out there a half an hour ago to look for this thing, and I got to spend another half an hour looking for this other thing?" And like he would just literally send me on this like trip back and forth running, and I'm just like, "Hey, tell me everything you need now, and I'll go grab it at once," instead of like running back and forth. So yeah, I definitely related with this story of working with your dad.
Yeah, and I feel like if I was a total idiot technician, it would be a little bit of a different story. Like, you know,
yeah, you know what's up, right? So,
so if I was like an idiot, didn't know what I was doing, you know, I was losing customers because I didn't know what I was doing, it would be a completely different story if I was a complete idiot.
Yeah.
But
once you turn around the company,
that's
the once you have that trust though, then it's like
I think once the money started coming in the bank,
I was just to say that. The numbers don't lie, especially the Asian parents.
And you know, he can see it. Like when we first came in and to the money we make now, there's a dramatic difference, and the profit margin is a lot larger. So like he sees it. So I think he's probably more thankful than anything because, you know, growing up in the 80s, 90s, he's always owned a small business. I don't think it's ever been successful. I don't think he's ever had a business He's had two business partners. One when he owned Cascade and the other one when he owned AeroCorp, and both of them were horrible business partners where, you know, growing up poor, you know, you didn't have much, you know, And then now, he's finally seen success when he hit 60.
That's awesome.
It's a little bit of pride for me that, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've turned it around for him, finally.
Totally. That's awesome. It's an awesome story, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Any last words, any advice you want to share to
people getting into business?
Anything?
You've got to really care about your business. If you're gonna not care, it's gonna fail right off the bat. You've got to work hard. Like, there's no slacking off. There's no days off. Obviously, I have a family and I've sacrificed a lot for the business, and my family's been understanding it that part. So, there's now that, the business is doing well, there's going to be an equilibrium. But in the beginning, you just got to put your nose to the grinder and then give her your all. Because if you don't, they say, like, a lot of small businesses don't end up successful. That's just the nature of the business.
Yeah. Isn't it like 95% or something?
Yeah, it's like a 5% success rate in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's another 5% success rate after that.
Yeah.
Because you kind of get, like, complacent after 5 years, right? If you're not constantly readapting and whatever, then you're not the failure rate increases. It's exponential.
Yeah. So, you got to come up with new things, new ways to do things, increase your clientele, anything to boost you to the next level. If we could have always just coasted, with our certain level, but you always have to think, like, okay, 5 years, what is the next thing that we, like in aviation, like, we're always changing on the newest systems. There's got to be something, we can be installing. There's got to be something that we could be doing different as far as aviation is concerned. That was the big thing for me, is working really, really, really hard for the first 5 years, because you gotta push it. I mean, there's days that I worked, like, there's one project I worked like nearly 32 hours straight on an aircraft on my on my hands, troubleshooting, because the airplanes need to fly, like, and we were wrapping up a project, the plane wasn't working. I worked right through the night. I worked in the morning till like 12 the next day, to where the point I was passing out, so that was one big thing. Obviously, again, like with the two of you, you've got to, if you plan to have a business partner, you have to have the right person with you to run the race. If you don't, just like a relay team, you can't pass the baton and the guy drops it, right? So, having the right business partner, it really, really, really does help a lot. To have the same focus, to have the same goal. Obviously, everything's money driven when you own your own business. You want it to become successful, and then for me to take everybody with you with that success. Not just the success of AeroCorp is just me. It's like, okay, I can pay my if the success of me is doing well, I can pay my employees more money, so they're even more happier. I can create an environment that they can enjoy as well, on top of my own gratification. So seeing not just me be successful, as well as my employees doing well, is gratitude to me. Yeah. We don't have, like, at AeroCorp, we have a very, very, very low turnover rate. Like, the last guy that quit, he ended up going to New Zealand to work, and he took his wife with there with kid, because it was an adventure for him, right? So I couldn't knock him on it. He said there was nothing wrong with our company. He just wanted something different in another country, and who doesn't want to go to New Zealand? Yeah. So that was, and one individual actually retired Friday. He worked for our company for almost 18 years, 19 years, and he retired with us. So, like, we created that environment to say, hey, we're going to be nice to you, and our success is your success. So, like, in aviation, we're so cutthroat that we, a lot of companies don't introduce bonuses, and most people don't have, we're federally run aviation, so they don't give the all holidays, like Family Day, the one in August. We do things that try to retain that environment, and we give all the Christmas off, which in aviation, planes don't stop flying between, you
Yeah.
know, the 26th and the 2nd of January.
No.
So, you know, we still, you know, try to, you know, induce that kind of environment.
Good culture.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like business meetings between you and your business partner, or like how do you guys
Yeah, how do you guys structure your
structure like to talk about what the next step is?
So like, you know, me and Josh, we have, when it comes to big decisions, we'll have a meeting in one of our office, and when there's like, you know, big major meetings, like a big, you know, meeting, we'll bring my father in, like that incorporates the big, you know, picture. So we do have structured meetings and finance meetings. Obviously, we have our, you know, our quarterly meetings, and then
Do you guys do weekly meetings?
no, actually, we like my department's so busy that, you know, we let kind of like my father run his side, and then we run with our side, and then any major decision, you know, we'll get together. We don't have like, okay, let's, you know, meet for like a week or every week, every Monday, and you know, see what's up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We have a 3-hour weekly meeting every Tuesday
Oh.
Yeah.
from
Do you
9:30 to 12.
Do you feel it really helps?
It does. It kind of just structures the week, and then it also kind of lets everybody know what's going on. And then we have like different segments of what we go through, and then just see what the progress is on these things, just so that everything is in line.
It's kind of just to get grounded. But I think our business maybe is a little
Very
different.
Yeah, you guys got to make more and
Yeah.
more decisions.
Yeah.
Like
On a day-to-day
day-to-day
yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
Where for me, like,
Yeah.
because
It's
if my department,
project-based.
I'm in charge of my department. So if planes are grounded, I'm the one that like does all the crewing. I'm like the one that segregates all the projects. You know, ordering all the parts. You know, so we do have our meetings, but not as structured as we should.
Yeah.
Actually.
It's more technical, but yeah, it sounds like it's like almost like a pit stop.
Yeah.
Coordinating people. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
All right. And any last words, Caleb?
I don't have too many last words.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Good. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. Okay. Where can they find you?
Oh, you can Google us, obviously, AeroCorp Avionics. We're located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. You can go to our website, aerocorpavionics.com, to find out any more information on what we see and do. And if you want a tour, give me a call.
Oh, we're getting that
We're
tour.
doing that tour. I will actually want to see it.
Taking some photos too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, we'll end it at that. And thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.